Why? Why can't you get this right? Lucas muttered, shaking his head in frustration. You're my son, Ethan. My son. This is elementary math. 7-year-old Ethan Carter sat silent, shoulders curled, his fingers gripping the edge of the chair as if holding himself together. He didn't cry. He'd learned not to, especially when his father got that look in his eyes, the one that said failure wasn't allowed in this house. Lucas let out a breath, slow and long. You failed 4 math tests in a row. I've hired the best tutors money can buy. What do I get? 0 progress. If you can't pass the next one, I'm done letting you waste time. He turned and walked out, grabbing his coat from the rack. Ethan stayed frozen from behind the hallway corner. Maya Williams had heard every word. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She was just on her way to vacuum the library. But now her heart ached. Not out of pity. No. She knew that feeling too well. Being told you're failing when no one ever asked how your brain works in the first place. She glanced down at her cleaning cart, then back at the boy. Later that afternoon, when Lucas left for his business trip in Seattle, Maya found Ethan alone in the sunroom, doodling in the margins of another worksheet. Hey, she said gently, not wanting to scare him. I know I'm just the maid, but would you want to try a game? Ethan shrugged. Does it have math? A little. She smiled. But with a twist that made him look up. They cleared the coffee table, laid out colored candies in groups. And Maya showed him how to see addition like building towers, multiplication like skipping stones. They laughed when she miscounted on purpose. They made mistakes together, then fixed them together. It wasn't school. It wasn't pressure. It was learning. Every afternoon for a week, as long as Lucas was away, Maya met Ethan in secret by the kitchen island. In the laundry room, even once behind the greenhouse, they used cereal, bottle caps, paper clips. They made math into something Ethan could touch. And slowly, something incredible happened. Ethan began to understand. He passed the next test, then the one after that. By the third, his teacher called Lucas to say, "Whatever you're doing at home, it's working." Lucas was baffled. There were no new tutors, no scheduled sessions. Must be the pressure finally sinking in. He muttered, proud, though puzzled. Then came the afternoon he came home early. The staff wasn't expecting him. Maya certainly wasn't. She and Ethan were sitting on the floor of the reading room, arranging flashcards shaped like pizza slices. Ethan was laughing, his voice bright, counting aloud with joy Maya hadn't seen on his face before. Lucas stepped in. What the hell is going on here? Ethan froze. Maya's heart dropped into her stomach. Lucas's face twisted with disbelief. You're the maid, who told you to teach my son? I didn't. Maya stood flustered. I didn't mean, you think this is appropriate? His voice rose. You went behind my back. Use my child to play school, Mr. Carter. She tried again, but then Ethan stood up. She helped me. He said, voice shaking. You said I was a failure. But she never did. Lucas looked down at his son for a second. The rage cracked into confusion. What? She taught me with candy, with drawings. She showed me it's okay to see things differently. He held up one of the flashcards proudly. I passed because of her. Lucas looked at Maya. She didn't flinch. She just met his gaze and said quietly, I didn't plan this. I just saw a child who needed help. And I knew how to help because I used to be him. Silence settled over the room. Lucas looked at the worksheet Ethan had proudly left on the floor, 95 out of 100. Then he looked back at his son, standing straighter than usual, and finally at Maya, who for once didn't look like the help, but like someone who believed in something bigger than rules. He didn't speak again that evening. Not when he left the room. Not when Maya returned to folding laundry. Not even when Ethan said goodnight. But the next morning, Lucas walked into the kitchen, placed a new whiteboard on the wall, and said, "If you're going to keep teaching my son, at least do it properly." Then he handed Maya a dry erase marker. Maya stared at it, unsure if she was supposed to respond. Lucas crossed his arms. "You can continue helping him, but under one condition." She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. You don't overstep. He's still my son. You're not a teacher and I'm not handing over his future to a housemaid with good intentions. Keep it simple. Math only. Understand?" "Yes," she said softly, meeting his eyes. "I understand." He gave a slight nod, then turned and walked away, pulling out his phone before he'd even left the room. Maya let out a slow breath. Her hands were still damp from the dishes, but her fingers trembled slightly as she reached out to open the box. Inside was a sleek whiteboard, shiny and unblemished, along with a set of color-coded markers and a pack of math-themed magnets shaped like numbers and symbols. She didn't smile. Not yet. Not until she knew what this truly meant. By mid-morning, she and Ethan were setting up the board in the breakfast nook, just under the window where the sun filtered in warm and gentle. They took their time arranging it. Maya measured the distance between the magnets like a perfectionist, and Ethan kept asking if they could use blue for subtraction and green for multiplication. "I think green feels like multiplying," he explained. "Green it is," Maya said. Their first lesson under official permission began with what Ethan called the snack shop challenge, where he had to add up orders using toy cookies and juice boxes. Maya adjusted her approach, slightly less playful than their secret sessions, more structured, but she kept the warmth, the praise, the safety. "You're doing great," she said when he got 5 in a row correct. Ethan beamed. "I think the board helps." "It's not the board," she said, tapping his temple gently. "It's the brain behind it." The house felt different now. Not louder, not busier, but somehow warmer, like someone had turned up the volume on life just enough to notice. Still, Maya moved with quiet caution. Every time she walked through the halls with the markers in her apron pocket, she felt the invisible line she wasn't supposed to cross. Lucas's warning echoed in her mind. "Don't overstep." That afternoon, as they finished a lesson on even and odd numbers using colored blocks, Lucas walked into the room. He didn't interrupt, just stood silently by the doorway, watching. Ethan didn't notice. He was too focused, too proud of his little tower of number pairs. 4 plus 2 is 6. "That's even," Ethan said, grinning. "Correct," Maya affirmed, then glanced at Lucas briefly. Her posture straightened. Lucas said nothing. But his eyes scanned the board, the blocks, the worksheets neatly stacked in the corner. After a few seconds, he turned and walked out, still silent. That evening, as Maya was wiping down the counters, the older housekeeper, Mrs. Adela, came by with a basket of linens. "You've made an impression," she said, half whispering. Mia raised an eyebrow. "What kind?" Adela smirked. "The kind that either gets you fired or promoted to the unofficial family member. Be careful." Maya nodded but said nothing. She knew better than to assume anything. A kind word today didn't always mean security tomorrow. Later that night, as she headed to her quarters above the garage, she found a small note folded on the stair rail. It was written in blocky, uneven handwriting. "Thank you for the board. Today was fun. I like green now." She smiled at the paper for a long time before slipping it into her pocket. That night, as she drifted to sleep, she didn't dream about her old life or the warnings of the past. She dreamed of numbers floating like stars, scattered, imperfect, but slowly coming together to make something whole. By the end of the week, the whiteboard in the breakfast nook was no longer pristine. It was filled with equations, colorful shapes, hand-drawn emojis, and Ethan's proud little notes. "I got it in green marker. I hate fractions in red," and a smiley face with big ears drawn in blue. Every morning, Maya arrived in the nook 10 minutes early, setting up lessons that disguised themselves as games. She never called it studying. She never made Ethan sit still for more than 15 minutes. She made up math songs, let him tap the table to count rhythm, and used measuring cups from the kitchen to explain proportions. Ethan, once a boy who shrank into silence, now sat up taller, asked questions, and, even more telling, laughed. But for all the progress inside the nook, the rest of the house wasn't as warm. Mia noticed it first with Mrs. Adela. The once chatty housekeeper stopped pausing to talk. She passed Maya in the hallway with polite nods, her eyes never meeting hers. Then the groundskeeper, Bernard, usually a source of morning jokes, grew tight-lipped whenever Maya walked by. It didn't take long before she overheard them. "She's getting too comfortable," Adela whispered one afternoon while polishing silver in the butler's pantry. "She's been in the breakfast room for hours," Bernard added. "Carter pays her to sweep floors, not to play school teacher." "They say the boy's improving," another voice chimed in. "But she's still just the help. What happens if she gets it wrong?" Maya froze outside the door, her spine stiffening. She hadn't meant to listen. But their words found her like smoke under a door. She took a breath, forced her shoulders to relax, and continued on with her tasks. She'd heard worse, much worse. Still, that night, as she erased the board and gathered up the magnets, she moved slower. Her fingers lingered on the words Ethan had scrolled in green. "I like numbers now." She traced them with her thumb, quietly wondering how long this would last. The next day, during a lesson on multiplication tables, Ethan asked, "Why don't you have your own classroom?" Maya smiled, but didn't answer immediately. "I mean," Ethan continued, frowning, "you're better than my school teacher. You don't get mad when I mess up and you make numbers make sense." Maya sat down the flashcards. "That's sweet of you, baby. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes people don't get the job they're best at." Why not?" She considered her words carefully. "Not everyone gets the same chance. Sometimes folks get looked over or told they don't belong in places they were born to be in." Ethan looked puzzled. "That's dumb." She chuckled. "It is." He paused. "Do you like working here?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I like helping you." That seemed to satisfy him. But the question lingered in her mind long after he went upstairs for his afternoon reading hour. Later that afternoon, Lucas returned home early. Maya didn't know until she heard his voice echoing through the hallway. "Adela, I want the reports from the security team this week and tell Bernard to double-check the camera footage around the perimeter." He sounded stressed, sharper than usual. When he entered the breakfast nook, Maya immediately straightened. Ethan was solving a problem about measuring distances using toy cars lined up in various lengths. He looked up and grinned. "Dad, I used your Tesla as 10 feet." Lucas blinked, caught off guard by his son's enthusiasm. "Is that so?" "Yeah, and the truck is 15. Maya said, "We can turn the living room into a racetrack if we use math." Lucas's eyes flicked to Maya. For a moment, she wasn't sure what he'd say. Instead, he only nodded. "Good work." As he turned to leave, Mia caught the faintest crease in his brow. Not quite disapproval, but not comfort either. That night, Lucas called Maya into his study. She wiped her hands and entered slowly, unsure what awaited. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit," she did. "I've reviewed Ethan's progress reports from school," he said. "His teacher called again today. She said he's a different child, more confident, focused, curious." Maya nodded silently. Lucas continued. "They asked if we'd hired a professional tutor. I told them no." She tensed. He looked at her. "I want to be clear. You're doing something I didn't expect, and I appreciate the progress. But I also need boundaries. This isn't a teaching position. I can't have the staff thinking there's a shift in hierarchy. You understand?" "Yes," she said calmly. "I do." He leaned back. "Good. Keep going. Just keep it quiet." The words hit harder than he likely intended. "Keep going, but stay invisible." After she left the study, Maya walked outside into the garden, needing air. The stars were out, sharp, clear, and bright over the BUP stories.